"What a miracle! Simply enchanting!" Laura exclaimed in admiration. Kyle had intended to tease his wife by reminding her that she finds everything adorable, but he immediately noticed what had captured her attention and silently agreed with a nod. Indeed, an incredibly cute cat was sitting before them. Its small size, neat appearance, cleanliness, and fluffiness immediately stood out. But the most astonishing feature was its unusual fur. From a distance, it appeared smoky, but as the cat approached closer, the ginger and white hairs became noticeable, as if hidden beneath a grayish veil. Add to this an expressive face with an indescribably touching expression, and it becomes clear why Laura was so delighted. Such an unusual cat. "Let me see what I can offer you," Laura murmured. She opened her bag, plunged her hand inside, and began actively searching for something. Kyle had always regarded his wife's bags with a certain apprehension. These seemingly compact accessories seemed to possess the properties of a parallel dimension. An incredible number of items could fit inside. For example, there were always hydrogen peroxide, bandages, band-aids, a comb, lipstick, mascara, half of a makeup bag, a notebook with a pen, spare tights, and a snack bar. Often, her husband joked that a set of tools might even be found inside. Therefore, lost apartment keys or a missing wallet did not surprise him. And so, with slight frustration, Laura pulled out a small packet of cat food from the depths of her bag. "Why isn't it lying there?" Kyle thought, almost smirking. And indeed, although they didn't have a cat or even fish at home, Laura always carried a bit of animal food with her. Today, it turned out to be quite handy. Laura crouched down beside the fluffy find and, continuing to speak softly, carefully opened the packet. However, the cat reacted unexpectedly. Its hypnotic stillness vanished. It twitched and jumped back to the side. But Laura didn't lose her composure. She simply poured the aromatic pads in a delicate sauce onto a section of asphalt that seemed relatively clean and stepped back a few paces. Watching the scene unfold, Kyle pondered. In TV commercials, they always claimed that the pads were soft and the sauce gentle. Sometimes he even thought of buying a pack to verify the claims. But curiosity quickly faded. Meanwhile, the cat, as if sensing his thoughts, dashed toward the food. It didn't chew, but swallowed the pads whole, clearly hurrying to satisfy its hunger. Within a minute, only a damp mark remained on the asphalt, reminiscent of the recently laid food. After finishing its meal, the animal moved a few steps away, glanced distrustfully at the people, and, seeing no additions, began to groom itself. "Poor thing, she seems really hungry and afraid of people. Maybe someone abandoned her?" Laura said sadly, looking at the cat. Then she looked up at her husband and, already mentally immersed in plans to save the foundling, let his question slip. "Aren't you going to take her home?" Kyle was not surprised at all when their trip to the supermarket, which began with ordinary shopping, unexpectedly ended in the pet supplies section. The man calmly pretended that a few packs of cat food should naturally end up in their basket, and thus began their unusual friendship with the cat. It was unusual because, despite regular feedings in the mornings and evenings, Laura never tried to tame the animal. However, the cat singled Kyle out from the others, sometimes even brushing against his legs, yet not allowing either him or Laura to touch it. The neighbors, accustomed to the cat's presence, did not express dissatisfaction. Every day, as she prepared to go to work, a woman from the neighboring building left a portion of food, and Kyle usually headed straight to the car, where he patiently waited for his wife. The clever and quickly adapting cat had learned to greet her benefactors right on the hood of their car. In the evening, when the couple returned and parked the car under a tree, the cat was already habitually waiting for them. Fur left on Kyle's pants and food that had become a constant companion not only in Laura's bag, but also in their car's glove compartment had become commonplace. "Looks like she's tamed you," Kyle thought fleetingly. However, just a couple of weeks later, they both noticed that the cat had become significantly plumper. Now she resembled a fluffy ball, and questions about her condition became inevitable. It was unclear whether she had appeared pregnant in their yard or if some neighbors' tomcats were to blame. But one thing became clear: a litter of kittens would soon be born. This prospect scared Kyle, but Laura, on the contrary, showed keen interest in the event. She even bought special food designed for pregnant animals. "Have you given her a name yet?" the man asked perplexedly. "We're feeding her, so we have the right to choose a name. Layla sounds gentle and cute, just like her," Laura replied. Kyle didn't argue. After some time, Kyle was sent on a business trip, but he suggested that Laura come along. For her, it was a chance to combine the useful with the pleasant. Laura took a few days off on her own dime, and they set off on their journey. They entrusted the feeding of the cat to an elderly neighbor on the first floor, leaving her a supply of food. On the road, the couple enjoyed new places. 4 days flew by unnoticed. Kyle quickly finished his work tasks, and the remaining time was spent exploring the surroundings. Layla, despite their attachment, was only remembered fleetingly when stray cats from another city crossed their path. When the impression-filled days came to an end, returning home was not the most desired moment. The spouses intentionally prolonged their departure by strolling through the streets of the unfamiliar city. Finally, late at night, they pulled into their yard. Exhaustion overcame them so much that, upon entering the apartment, they immediately collapsed onto the bed and fell asleep, leaving thoughts of household chores for later. A new work morning began for the couple with bright sunlight and an unpleasant discovery. The refrigerator was empty. A whole week lay ahead, and stocking up on semi-prepared meals seemed like a good idea. Otherwise, they would have to spend their entire hard-earned salary on shawarma from the nearest food truck. Realizing this, Kyle and Laura reluctantly left the warm bed. As soon as they were outside, Laura abruptly stopped, slapping her forehead. "Oh no! I completely forgot about Layla's food. I'll run quickly, grab it, and wait for you in the car," she declared. Her husband nodded and stayed to wait. The morning was unusually cool but pleasant. The open car doors allowed fresh air to freely enter. Kyle settled comfortably into the seat and, relaxing, enjoyed the moment. However, an unexpected meow interrupted his thoughts. Looking around in astonishment, he noticed Layla racing toward the car, barely touching the ground with her paws. She stopped a step away from the open door, looking around cautiously. Something about her behavior seemed unusual, and Kyle couldn't shake a strange feeling. Perhaps it was because he hadn't seen the cat for a while. "Hi, Laura will feed you soon," he said, trying to calm the animal. But Layla clearly did not share his calmness. She looked worried, as if something sudden and inexplicable was troubling her. Kyle carefully placed his foot on the ground, intending to get out and sit beside her. He knew that petting the cat was pointless. She wouldn't allow it. But he wanted at least to talk to her. However, he didn't have the time. As soon as his foot entered the reachable zone, Layla swiftly lunged forward and pressed her entire body against his leg. It seemed she wanted to bond with the man, hoping he would never leave her again. "Layla," he whispered. But before he could touch her fur, the cat suddenly jumped back to the side. She disappeared so quickly, as if chased by a whole pack of dogs. Kyle merely extended his hand in confusion, watching her disappearance, and shook his head. He hoped that his relationship with the cat would finally reach a new level where she would allow herself to be petted. Alas, dreams shattered against reality. The man returned to the car and slammed the door shut. Cats are as fickle as women, Kyle thought. They could offer false hope and then change their minds at the last moment. Laura still hadn't returned, and his thoughts began to wander, contemplating possible reasons for her delay. But suddenly, his attention was drawn to a sound again. It wasn't just a meow, but something stranger. Only Coca could make that sound. Kyle turned his head to the window, trying to figure out what was happening. Kyle suddenly realized what had disturbed him so much. Layla, the cat he was used to seeing as a fluffy furball, no longer looked the same. Her previous fluffiness hadn't disappeared, but the enormous belly that had once been noticeable was now gone. Instead, she carried something tiny and covered in fur in her mouth. Stretching out of the car window, Kyle tried to make out the kitten. This delicate peach-colored creature starkly contrasted with its mother's smoky fur. Before his eyes was only part of a tiny back and a small tail. The man wanted to get out of the car, but Layla's behavior made him freeze. She quickly approached the car, pushed off the ground, and like an experienced acrobat, leaped right onto the window. Startled, Kyle recoiled. Layla wasted no time, hopped inside, and gently landed on the mat beneath the passenger seat. It was there she carefully placed her load, a tiny kitten whose appearance made the man feel a slight tremor inside. "Don't be afraid. I won't harm him," he softly said, raising his hands to show his open palms. From the outside, it might have looked something ridiculous or even amusing, but Kyle felt as if the cat was silently communicating with him. While Layla continued to sniff the nearby bushes, a faint squeak came from the car. Kyle noticed the little one. Picking it up in his palms, he was amazed at how tiny the creature was. The man had never delved into the specifics of feline development, but he was almost certain that the kitten had been born very recently, possibly the previous night. Its tightly closed eyes, a thin umbilical cord still drying, and transparent skin through which an intricate network of blood vessels was visible only confirmed his suspicions. The kitten's peachy fur was so fine and without undercoat that it couldn't protect him from the cold. The kitten was trembling, and Kyle, instinctively wanting to warm it, covered the little creature with his other hand. He glanced toward the bushes, hoping that Layla wouldn't abandon her kitten. However, the cat didn't take long. Something gray was in her mouth. Kyle already suspected it was a second kitten. Layla, without wasting any time, deftly entered the car, placed the gray kitten next to the first one, and looking around, disappeared back into the bushes. At that moment, Laura appeared from the building, proudly holding a packet of food in her hand. "Can you imagine? We gave everything to the neighbor. I rummaged through all the cabinets and found nothing. Not even anything left in my bag," she exclaimed, clearly outraged by the situation. Her indignation was so sincere that Kyle barely held back a smile. "Really, how is it possible that there was nothing in your bag?" he teased. Laura, ignoring his joke, continued. "The neighbor wouldn't let go until she questioned us about everything. But now we have food. Haven't you seen Layla?" Kyle took a deep breath, intending to explain everything, but Laura beat him to it. Her gaze fixed on the cat, who was approaching the car again, with another kitten in her mouth. Layla carefully placed the third little one next to the first two and covered them with her cold paws, trying to warm them. Laura immediately opened the trunk, pulled out a fluffy towel, and made a cozy nest for the kittens on the seat. Observing her actions, Kyle finally decided to walk around the car, open the trunk, and peek inside. He was sure there couldn't be any towel there. Could she have grabbed that one? He wondered. But the trunk was empty and looked completely innocent. Kyle decided to leave solving this mystery for later and return to his wife. The trip to the store took a backseat. They both stayed to wait for Layla, understanding that the cat would continue to bring her kittens until they were all in the car. The mystery for Kyle remained. Why did she choose this particular spot? Of course, they fed the cat, but the car was too noisy and unpleasant smelling to become a cozy nest. However, Layla seemed to think otherwise, and the man could only guess what was driving her at that moment. The cat disappeared several more times and then reappeared, each time bringing a new kitten. Kyle could no longer contain his nervous chuckle. Could Layla's lineage include rabbits? Laura did not appreciate his humor. The cat, looking at her husband, snorted as if expressing disapproval. When Layla returned with her sixth kitten, the couple breathed a sigh of relief. Well, it seems she brought them all. At the same time, the cat, seemingly on edge, behaved restlessly, constantly looking around, twitching her ears, listening to the street sounds. The spouses decided that the reason for such behavior was stress from the new environment. Just at that moment, they were pondering how to cope with the unexpected addition of a fluffy family when Layla suddenly jumped onto Kyle. The man noted with relief that he had worn sweatpants instead of shorts due to the cool morning. If the cat had grabbed my bare leg, I'd be in serious trouble, he thought. "Hey, what are you doing? Get off, do you hear? Let go!" He desperately tried to shake the cat off his leg. But Layla seemed to hold on with all her might, looking at him with large eyes and some strange expression. Realizing that his efforts only strengthened the cat's grip, Kyle froze. Layla immediately let go. calmly stepped aside and turned to him as if checking his reaction. Without waiting for the desired outcome, she grabbed his trouser leg again. "I think she's trying to call you somewhere," Laura observed. "What a method," Kyle replied. "Just a little more, and she'll either rip my pants or leave scratch marks. You take her yourself." But there was no need to do so. Kyle had already noticed an immobile kitten nearby. In an instant, he jumped to the little one, picked it up, noting how cold its tiny body was. The barely noticeable breathing of the animal confirmed that the kitten was still alive, although its condition remained critical. Without wasting time, the man headed to the car. Layla followed closely, like a devoted puppy, and then, having entered, immediately settled in with the other kittens, warming them with her body. The question of further actions was no longer up for debate. The spouses immediately decided to go to the veterinarian. Kyle handed the trembling kitten to Laura, who moved back to avoid disturbing the cat family. Wrapping the little one in a scarf, she gently rubbed its body, trying to warm it. Kyle was no longer surprised by how his wife could come up with the most unexpected things at the right moment, even an electric blanket. At the veterinary clinic, they first took only the injured kitten. The doctor quickly diagnosed hypothermia and praised the couple for their promptness. According to him, thanks to their actions, the kitten did not succumb to the cold. Ideally, the mother cat should provide warmth to her kittens in the first days of their lives, the veterinarian explained. However, Layla apparently couldn't warm all the little ones, so she turned to humans for help. After listening to the story, the doctor suggested examining all the kittens. Fortunately, they didn't find any serious health issues. The veterinarian explained how to properly care for the cat family, advised treating them for parasites, and let them go home. The only frozen kitten was left at the clinic under observation for a day, warmed by a special lamp. The others returned home with their parents. Kyle might have realized the consequences back then when Laura, without a second thought, described the cat as cute. A moment had come in their family life when everything could change. Suddenly, a whirlwind. However, there was no turning back. Laura held onto the kittens tightly. Layla clung to Kyle's trouser leg, and he had to carry them all home. At home, he arranged the little ones on a cozy bedding, but the joy of the new additions didn't last long. They remembered that the trip to the store hadn't happened. They had to get back in the car again, but this time Kyle made sure that the windows and doors were closed. Later, when they decided to pick up the frostbitten kitten, the family was once again complete. Layla thoroughly examined the scents left from the hospital visit, and Laura enthusiastically told everyone she knew, friends and colleagues about it. Soon, the apartment began to resemble a real cat shelter. People brought everything they had left unused: houses, scratching posts, bowls, toys. A corner in the room had to be cleared to accommodate all this cat gear. Kyle watched all this with quiet gloom, realizing that it was just the beginning. He sighed restrainedly, assessing potential losses. Laura hugged him, and Layla rubbed against her legs, both looking at the man in such a way that he found no strength to either grieve aloud or, much less, evict the family. And how could he? The kittens were so tiny that they could hardly crawl away on their own. Soon, the elderly neighbor from the first floor agreed to take one of the cats. Kyle thought that when it grew up, the task would be easier. All that remained was to accommodate 6 more kittens and neuter Layla. What can be said? The real little things in life.